online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy. Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy. Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free.
Welcome back to the podcast. Tremendously honored to be with you today. We are looking at quite a number of different stories when it comes to, really, how crazy this all is with the Democrats going straight for the throat when it comes to the government shutdown, when it comes to this whole everything, honestly, everything. But one thing that I do need to mention, because it is quite important that we start the podcast out by helping you to understand that there's one thing for certain about this world. This world is indeed after. This world is in a tailspin. And what's happening in America and what's happening abroad, we are in a battle, an information war, a war on our mind. Right? God warns Daniel of a time where many will run away. They'll run to and fro. Knowledge will increase. And possibly referring to the increased knowledge of the word because of the time and the season we are living in. That is Daniel 12:4. But also to possibly referring to an increase in general knowledge. So an increase of knowledge to the word, or an increase of knowledge to just general knowledge. This age, or this information war that we have, this age of AI. So much is happening where we need to understand where the truth lies in all of this matter. But we do know one thing that is for sure, and that God's word will never pass away. But if you want to engage in the spiritual battle that we face, the war that wages in our mind, you go back to Scripture. The Scriptures say that forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens. Or heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. These are very interesting scriptures to meditate on, to understand where we need to center ourselves in the midst of everything that is happening. For example, many Democrats have something they can't get out of their minds. One thing they can't get out of their mind, that is actually one person. That is Donald J. Trump. All of the things that he does, they will be held under a tight microscope. Rightly so. He is the president of the world, of the most powerful nation. They like to focus on minute things, more specific items. One second, guys. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Now, I'm going to restart for you guys so that you guys can know where I'm getting started here, because let's just start from the very beginning. This is all important. For those that are just joining in, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the Equally Yoked Show. I'm tremendously honored to be with you. But one thing is for certain, that the world is in a tailspin. From what's happening in America, from what is happening abroad, we are in a battle, an information war, a war for our mind. God warns Daniel of a time where many will run to and fro. Knowledge will increase. Now, whether this is referring to a knowledge and an increase of the word, or knowledge and just a general knowledge, an increase in knowledge, which we have we're living in an incredible time where AI is advancing so much, where we're able to get and obtain information at a rapid speed just by the click of a couple of keystrokes, the click of a button, a simple prompt, and out comes information. Now, what you do with that information is entirely up to you. How you begin to process the information, how you begin to accept the information. But we do know that even with all this information that is coming out, with everything that is happening, with everything that we're getting, God's word will never pass away. If you want to engage in this spiritual battle that we face, the war that rages in our mind, go back to scriptures. Go back to the scripture. Go back to the word of God that, as God says forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens. Actually, as many have said it in the scriptures, what is very true, even Jesus himself saying, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Now, according to Peter, we know that the earth will be destroyed by fire. But then he goes on to say again that the word will not pass away. And with this battle that is raging on in our minds, let's take a look at the Democrats for a second. They just have something they can't get out of their mind. That one person, not something, but one person, that is Donald Trump. of all the things that he does, from what they'll just attach to his name, like the government shutdown or the demolition of the East Wing, they'll be holding him under a very tight microscope to analyze everything, to analyze all the different things that he's doing across the start of his presidency till now. But of course, the specific agenda items that we're looking at as to what they are scrutinizing, such as the demolition of the East Wing. Now, the demolition of the East Wing, we've seen with the historical photos that you're seeing on screen now, if you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. There's, the sort of historical memorability, the historical memorabilia here, it's not so significant. It really isn't. Now, of course, it's an old building. People want to preserve. But people are saying that this is a disrespect for the people's house. Well, how true is that? When people are actually, many Americans, probably a split 50-50, close to a split 50-50. The ones who most certainly don't want Donald Trump in power will go against him, but then they're saying they're disrespecting the people's house. We're still called, even as Christians, to respect the governing authorities, so long as they don't impede on our worship of God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, without going into that too much, let's look at specific issues like the National Trust for Historic Preservation, who the head of this organization, the president and CEO since late 2023, is a registered Democrat. But the organization also directed nearly all of its political donations by 92%, 92.67% to Democrat candidates, committees, and parties, with only 7.33% going to Republicans. Now, why is that even significant? Because there's people that are saying, well, there's all these traditions that Trump has to go through, all these hoops that he has to go through. But when we look at the memorabilia here is all historical, all interior artifacts, furnishings, items. But all this was fully preserved, documented, and stored by the White House Historical Association before the demolition began on October 22nd. This included also a digital scanning and photography project capturing every detail of the wing and gardens for public historical records. This is funded by private donors. But some notable elements like Jacqueline Kennedy Garden, right? With two historic magnolia trees planted to commemorate President Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren. Museum quality antiques from First Lady restorations and World War II era bunker features. How historic is this really? How much do we need to actually preserve here in this East Wing, which has been the focus of some on the Democratic Party? But Trump has the authority, the full unilateral authority to renovate, demolish, or to expand the White House, as it is the executive residence under presidential control. U.S. presidents have historically exercised this power without congressional approval. And I hope all of you know that, of course, but under Section 107 of the National Historic Preservation Act in 1966, the White House, including grounds and wings, is fully exempt from Section 106 review, the standard process requiring federal agencies to assess impacts on historic sites. Consult tribe stakeholders and can allow public input. This also applies to the U.S. Capitol and Supreme Court. But such commissions, like the National Capital Planning Commission, provides advisory, non-binding review for new construction only for non-demolition or site prep. But Trump plans to submit plans voluntarily, but demolition proceeded without it. No external approvals are required. But I want to know, honestly, do you care about the demolition of the East Wing? Is this such a big deal that everybody's making it out to be? I want to know. You don't have to answer, but I would like to know. But of course, what you're seeing in the imagery above, the B-roll, this is what the, some pictures of the East Wing. This is not the full, catalog of what the East Wing looked like with everything, all the details that they might have captured. But you're seeing some changes that were made, some things that you see here. But you've seen just now Lady Pat Nixon. You're also seeing some images of First Lady Jill Biden. This is, of course, Obama, what you're seeing on screen now. There's Jill Biden. There's not much done here. Not much memorabilia here. It's been a place for decorations. But they've also made this into a sort of storehouse for a gift shop that sold jewelry and other keepsake. I mean, really not much is here. There is, of course, the bunker under the East Wing. And there you're seeing pictures of what it currently looks like being demolished, currently at the very moment. But the Democrats just went all out on this demolition, on scrutinizing Trump for the demolition of the East Wing. It has gotten absolutely radical, crazy. The type of conversations that I've seen online concerning this. But I want to know your thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Now, the topic of Nigeria and Sudan have been blasting out on social media. Nigeria more recently has caught the attention of President Trump because of the Christians that are being persecuted there by the thousands. But he's telling the Department of War to get ready. He's telling them to get ready, but for what exactly? Well, let's take a look. He says, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance. Thank you, honey. To Nigeria, and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing. To completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities, I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet. Just like the terrorist thugs attacked our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. Now, we've often talked about the Islamic movement that is ushering itself into the United States slowly but surely. We've seen what happened when it was slowly but surely ushered into the UK. And we're seeing the effects of it now 10 years later. So just because, it might not happen here, or it's just Muslims practicing their, religion. It's their freedom to do so here in America. And while that may be true, we know that Islamic fundamentalism, not that all Muslims practice Islam to the core, or are violent to the core, or maybe even well-meaning in practicing their faith, and probably will stay that way for the rest of their life. And might even denounce or go against the atrocities that have been committed by those who practice Islam, or the wild instances where Islam in its practice shows its ugly face within different countries, different states in America, different cities. Dearborn has been, of course, some of the topic of conversation here, but not to make it all about that. We're going to go into that later. This is also something that we see the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, weighs in on this on an X post in reply to Donald Trump's Truth Social. So he says, "Yes, sir. The killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and anywhere must end immediately. The Department of War is preparing for action. Either the Nigerian government protects Christians, or we will kill the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities." And for one of the comments from YouTube Punk saying, "Our Christians?" And somebody rightly says under, yes, our brothers and sisters. Because if you know Scripture, you don't have to even really know Scripture, but you know that the message within what Jesus is saying, what has been said from the disciples and the apostles, from the writers of the New Testament, they're saying, look, we are all under one body as Christ is the head of the church. These are our Christians. So this is important. This is a matter that needs our attention, and I'm glad that it has most certainly got to the attention of Donald Trump, because it is an excellent thing that we are looking into this to help Nigerians. Sudan, of course, as I mentioned, is also under this crazy, brutal conflict. But reports emerge that Sudan's rapid support forces have killed more than 400 people at a hospital in El Fasher in Darfur. But Yale Humanitarian Research Lab has been tracking the simmering conflict for years, having warned the UN Security Council, when they're all about genocide in Gaza, nothing is happening here. They're silent about it, as of right now. says in July 2023, the Al Fasher would come under siege and would result in mass slaughter. We are seeing now. Now, if you've also seen some of the satellite footage, you can see from the imagery, I mean, piles. You can see it's blurry. But intelligence is reporting that this is indeed blood or bodies piled up in Sudan of the mass killings that are going on. Many are saying that some of these Sudanese people are Christians. But it's unfortunate that we're having to, that this is not being, it's not very public. We're only seeing this sort of blow up on social media. Public in the sense of being in the mainstream media. But mainstream media, of course, likes to focus on things like the East Wing demolition and how insignificant that really is. But this civil war that has been long and complicated, it's rooted in the history's colonial and post-colonial era. And even more recent with the Darfur War, which started in 2003, but it says the conflict ignited in April 2023, building a simmering conflict with many aid groups monitoring and reporting upon the situation for years. But the RSF has its roots in the former longtime President Omar al-Bashir, Bashar's administration integration of predominantly Arab militias known as the Janjaweed that aided the government against rebel factions in the Darfur War, which ran from 2003 to 2020, resulting in a peace deal reached by the Transitional Sovereignty Council. So if what's happening in Nigeria, and if there are, I haven't seen much reporting about massive amount of Christians being killed in Sudan, but we're seeing that many women and children are being taken. Husbands are being killed. Chad is taking, I want to say it's Chad that is taking some of these refugees because of what's happening here in Sudan. But there's a lot here that it's more of a developing story that we need to continue looking at. So I want to know you guys' thoughts thus far. Email me freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. With this whole government shutdown, we're seeing a lot of information. This is a heavy information war concerning the shutdown. This is by far one of the longest shutdowns in history, if I'm not mistaken. And I do want to just close off the poll here for those that were voting earlier. Do you care about the demolition of the East Wing? Get in your last vote so we can close out that poll. So far, the majority of those that are voting, or 65%, say no. They don't really care. But everybody's making it about the demolition and how he broke laws and this and that, when he has the unilateral, we already went over this, the unilateral ability under his executive powers to do such a thing, as many presidents in the past have done. So the vote's in. 65% say no, 35% say yes. But weighing in on this shutdown, Oh, and by the way, this Nicki Minaj is getting she's getting a lot of hate because of the retweeting or re-X posting, however you want to put it nowadays, concerning Donald Trump's message about Nigeria. How she's saying, reading this made me feel a deep sense of gratitude. We live in a country where we can freely worship God. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion. We don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. Numerous countries all around the world are being affected by this horror. And it's dangerous to pretend we didn't or we don't notice. It says thank you to the president and his team for taking this seriously. God bless every persecuted Christian. Let's remember to lift them up in prayer. This is coming from Nicki Minaj. Riley Gaines is giving her some credit by saying this is the first major figure in Hollywood that I've seen speak out about the Christian persecution in Nigeria. I hope others follow her lead. Prayers for Christians across the world. And indeed, we've seen many Hollywood executives, many Hollywood actors, of course, speaking out on behalf of Palestine, the Palestinians, but yet none of them are speaking out against the atrocities that Hamas is committing on their own Palestinians, on their own people. It's interesting. They all go silent. But getting back to the shutdown for this segment here. Mike Johnson is weighing in again to this shutdown as he shares his thoughts. Let's hear what he has to say, because this is absolutely important when we look at this, when we look at John Thune, what he's saying concerning the shutdown. Again, there's this battle here, this information that is coming from every angle. So who are you going to believe? Let's hear it out.
President Trump has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that if there is any way to fund these programs that are drying up now, that he will do it. If there was any way to fund SNAP during the Democrat shutdown, you can be assured that your commander-in-chief would do it. But we are now reaching a breaking point. Thanks to Democrats voting no on government funding now 14 different times, SNAP benefits for millions of American families are drying up. It's about 1 in 8 people in this country who rely upon this to literally put food on their table. And the blame for this lies 100% with the senators sitting over there on the Democrat Party. They are the ones who have locked arms and decided over and over and over and over, 14 times now, to vote against these services being provided. And now I want you to think about that. You're going to have real people, real families. You're going to have children who will go hungry beginning this weekend when those resources dry up. They rely upon that, and yet the Democrats continue with their political games in Washington while people are sitting around the dinner table without the resources that they need. The administration has done all it can to keep this program afloat, but the limits have been reached here. And what are the Democrats doing today? Where are the Democrats? Are they in the Senate today? No, they're out campaigning. While critical SNAP benefits run dry, the Democrats have skipped town. They've abandoned their post in the Senate, and the reason that's so important and noteworthy for the American people is the Senate is the only place where this can end. The last hope of reopening the government before millions of Americans go hungry. They've abandoned their post. Democrats are now this is the incredible part, they're now trying to somehow blame Republicans for cutting off SNAP, when Republicans, remember, are the ones who have voted 14 times for the SNAP benefits to flow. It's the Democrats who voted every single time to turn that off. The same Democrats who've been perfectly fine with defunding SNAP and WIC for over a month now are suddenly claiming to be outraged that Republicans and President Trump can't just wave some magic wand and fix the mess that they themselves have created. If they're suddenly waking up to the pain their reckless decision is causing, then there's one simple way to fix it. They can come back in here and vote to reopen the government. But we don't think they're going to do that. Now, this is what's interesting. The most recent development is that you've got many more people now calling on the Senate Democrats to do the right job. There's a handful of moderates still in the Democrat Party, and they are very upset about that. The tension is rising. You had Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, for example, who just yesterday, I think it was, accused his own party of, quote, playing chicken with the food security of 42 million Americans. He's right. And you've seen now the avalanche of people and organizations and institutions calling on the Democrats to reopen the government and vote for the clean CR. You've got labor unions. You've got the largest airlines in America. You've got independent voters. Working class Americans across the country, they are all pleading with the Democrats to do their job and stop using their hardships, the people's hardships, for the Democrats' political games in Washington. Yesterday, there was a lot said, written about an editorial that was in the Washington Post.
Now, Donald Trump is weighing in also on his Truth Social, talking about this. He says Majority Leader John Thune and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson are doing a great job, but the Democrats are crazed lunatics, which he has said on coming off the Air Force One in Palm Beach. They have lost all sense of wisdom and reality, saying it's a sick form of the now legendary Trump derangement syndrome that only comes from losing too much. They want trillions of dollars to be taken out of our healthcare system and given to others who are not deserving, people who have come into our country illegally, many from prisons and mental institutions. This will hurt American citizens, and Republicans will not let it happen. It is now time for the Republicans to play their trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option, to get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now. Just a short while ago, Democrats, while in power, fought for 3 years to do this, but were unable to pull it off because of Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kristen Sinema of Arizona. Never have the Democrats fought so hard to do something because they knew the tremendous strength that terminating the filibuster would give them. They want to substantially expand the United States Supreme Court, make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states, thereby automatically picking up 4 Senate seats, many House seats, and at least 8 electoral votes, and many other highly destructive things. Well, now we are in power, and if we did what we should be doing, it would immediately end this ridiculous country-destroying shutdown. Now, John Thune is going to go into, of course, he's really going to go for it. He's going to say that now they're just realizing that there is consequences for doing what they're doing by holding this, as J.D. Vance put it, by holding Americans hostage, holding their food hostage. He then says if the Democrats ever came back into power, which would be much easier for them if the Republicans are not using the great strength and policies made available to us by ending the filibuster, says the Democrats will exercise their right, and it will be done the first day they take office, regardless of whether or not we do it. In addition to all the other things we would get, such as the best judges, best U.S. attorneys, the best everything. The best of everything says this was a concept from years ago of then President Barack Hussein Obama and former Majority Leader Harry Reid, in order to take advantage of the Republicans. Now, I want to do it in order to take advantage of the Democrats. But as we go through with what John Thune is going to say concerning this shutdown, he really goes for it. I want to know your thoughts.
What Democrats are doing here, they're making plans to keep the shutdown going. And they realize, all of a sudden, 29 days in, that this is a real consequence, real life pain for American families, something that results from their shutdown. So are they making plans to end the shutdown and reopen the government? Nope. They're going to propose a bill to fund food stamps during their shutdown. Mr. President, this request is a transparent admission that Democrats want to keep the shutdown for what? Another month? Longer? This bill is a cynical attempt to provide political cover for Democrats to allow them to carry on their government shutdown for the long term. Now, I'll point out, we did 13 short-term clean CRs when they had the majority.
Now, mind you, this was a day prior to Mike Johnson, or actually 2 days prior to Mike Johnson saying we have now 14 times. That was on the, actually it might have been the 30th. So the date that they posted it here would be on, day 31. Yeah, so this would be 2 days prior. Yes, the government is shut down. CF, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Here we go.
And President Biden was in the White House. 13. They've now voted 13 times against a clean CR. I have no idea where you're coming from. The Democrat leader said that President Trump could end this with a stroke of his pen. And he's right. We passed that bill with a stroke of his pen, he'll sign it into law. And the government opens up. And SNAP beneficiaries, SNAP recipients get food assistance. But you know what else? TSA workers get paid. Air traffic controllers get paid. Border Patrol agents get paid. Troops get paid. These people here get paid who are working without pay. You want to extend that and keep that going? Give me a break. So the people who aren't going to get the benefit of what they're trying to do today, Mr. President, are all the other programs that are affected. Head Start, grants to law enforcement to fight fentanyl and hire more cops to protect communities. Rural development programs that are important in my state, Senator from New Mexico State, I assume as well, that support housing, utilities, infrastructure projects in rural communities. Small business loans, certain direct loan and emergency programs that farmers rely on. National Guard training, critical to our nation's military readiness. Veterans transition assistance as they come out of service. Veterans cemetery services. Right now, there are no headstones, memorial certificates, cemetery maintenance. Programs that are at risk, rental and housing assistance. Delays in processing FHA-insured loans. Delays in aircraft inspections and maintenance for air traffic control equipment. People that are currently not getting paid. I mentioned some of them, but air traffic controllers, TSA officers, Capitol Police, the people who protect us in this building, NOAA employees who are tracking hurricanes and other potential weather disruptions, disasters, food inspectors, other food and drug safety officials, mine safety inspectors, people who don't have pay certainty right now, troops, Coast Guard, ICE, Border Patrol, federal law enforcement, federal federal wildland fighters, firefighters, extenders that have lapsed, telehealth and at-home care, community health centers, teaching health centers, special diabetes programs, payments for ambulances, hospital at-home services, other lapsed authorizations, CISA to prevent against cyber attacks, National Flood Insurance Program to prevent closure, on homes in flood zones. That's what you're leaving on the table. The bill at the desk takes care of all of it. Funds SNAP, funds WIC, and yes, with the stroke of the president's pen, he can sign it into law and everybody starts getting paid again.
Now, as I said, Trump does weigh in on this shutdown, but he also goes in a little bit deeper when it comes to the Truth Social post that he put out. He says, our government lawyers do not think we have the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies that we have available. It says, and now 2 courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and cannot do. I do not want Americans to go hungry. Just like everybody's saying that Trump wants Americans to go hungry. He wants them to starve. He wants to put them, all this nonsense, all this rhetoric. Nobody wants anybody to go hungry. Not the Republicans, not the Democrats. It's their leveraging point. It's their leveraging point. As many as the Democrats have said, Catherine Clark has said in an interview that this is our one chance. This is our leveraging point. This is our leverage. She says shutdowns are terrible. We've gone over this on the podcast. Then he goes on to say, after he says, I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Therefore, I have instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP. Just like everybody's challenging Trump, well, he's not doing things legally. So why not just do this thing illegal? But his administration is constantly in this battle to do things legally within his executive powers. And while some items are still under investigation, whether he's within his legal powers concerning ICE, concerning the National Guard, whatever the case is, we have many judges still ruling in favor of Trump because he is, of course, well within his purview of his executive powers. He's well within his executive powers. But it says, it is already delayed enough due to the Democrats keeping the government closed through the monthly payment date. And even if we get immediate guidance, it will unfortunately be delayed while states get the money out. If we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, he says, oh, you guys are already seeing it. Good. Very good. If we are already given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding, just like I did with the military and law enforcement pay. The Democrats should quit this charade where they hurt people for their own political reasons and immediately reopen the government. If you use SNAP benefits, call the Senate Democrats and tell them to reopen the government now. Here is the crying Chuck Schumer's office number, 202-224-6542. And people are upset because they're saying, well, why is Trump over there meeting with the president, or rather, the president of China? Why is he over there doing things outside of the country, meeting with Japan, meeting with other leaders, and he's not focused here on America? It's because he trusts his administration to work on his behalf concerning the government, concerning the shutdown. Let's go back to John Thune.
This is got to stop. Hostage taking. Now you want some political cover. How long is this going to go on? How much longer do you want to see it go on? Just out of curiosity. So you think this buys some time. You want the shutdown to go on for another month, and then we're going to have another people come down here and, well, let's carve this out or carve this out. Why don't we just open the government? I've never seen anything like this. I've been here a good amount of time. I've seen continuing resolutions and appropriations problems and funding fights and government shutdowns. I've been through a few. I've never seen anything like this. This just isn't done. You want to have a discussion about health care? Absolutely. Let's do it. Open the government, let's do it. President will sit down with Democrats next week if you want to talk about health care. That's not what this is about. So, Mr. President, we're not going to pick winners and losers. It's time to fund everybody who's experiencing the pain from this shutdown.
And by the way, Sue, I do want to read your email. Thanks for reminding me, YouTube Punk. You're saying Republicans have a history of defunding SNAP. It says you have people in the chat saying people are getting $62 a month for food, are moochers, and should get a job. 60% of recipients are the elderly and children. I'm going to take your word for that. It says, according to the nonpartisan, this is a quote that he puts here, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office and others, legislation supported by Donald Trump would cut funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program by about $186 billion over the next 10 years. Look, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, should not be for those to be sitting around at home lazy. As you mentioned here, you have people in the chat saying that people are getting $62 a month for food are moochers. When it all is dependent upon your income. So if you decide to stay at home and not work, live with your parents, or live with a family member that essentially, you can provide the food, you can get anywhere from, depending on how many kids you have, $700 to $1,000 plus in SNAP benefits. You should be allowed to receive benefits so long as you are working. You can provide. This is really just, again, it's in the name, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And I'm all for cutting and reducing the terrible food choices that you're allowed through SNAP. You don't want to get comfortable with it. You shouldn't get comfortable with it. You should use it as a crutch for when you need it. This is why there are these government programs, such as WIC, such as EBT, such as food stamps, whatever you want to call it. As somebody says in the comments, rightly so, supplemental. Bro, and by the way, YouTube Punk, $62 is merely enough to get you milk, a couple veggies, couple of fruits, at least some stuff to get you by. Yeah, how many of us go to the grocery store and we just need a couple of things? Albertsons, Target, wherever you want to go, and you end up paying $40 to $60 on basic items. Groceries are expensive. Yes, they are. And the ACA tax credits helped Americans, but this is healthcare. This is why the RFK Jr. is working to, and this is why Trump has actually made that huge announcement about getting medications down, the price for medication down. And insurance rates, of course, he wants to bring those down as well, because premiums are high, of course. But they're trying to work this out by, as they say, reopening the government so they can then negotiate these. As they say, it's a clean CR. So they're just passing it from what it was before to continue the negotiations concerning everything else. SNAP. And by the way, $186 billion over time, over the next 10 years. We're looking at about $18 billion a year. My math is terrible, so I had to calculate that for a moment. To get people off of, really, it shouldn't be the main source of food for people that want to sit at home and just receive benefits. It's not to be comfortable with. It is honestly, there's a crutch. So we're seeing this whole feud happen. But I do want to ask you a question in the chat. For those that are here watching the stream, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Email us your thoughts. freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Just reading your comments here. And by the way, YouTube, you're saying it's not the main source. Stop generalizing all poor people as lazy. Bearing false witness, $62 is not the main source. It's supplemental. If you wanted to work, you can get a job anywhere. You can get a job at McDonald's. You can get a job anywhere. Again, this is all based on able-bodied people to work. So your unreasonable comment saying, get to work, grandma, get to work, child, very unreasonable. What I'm talking about is people that are able-bodied, people that are obviously of age, and they're most likely not just getting $62 a month. Maybe that's the case for a small minority of people, possibly. But even then, you have elderly that are waiting till 67 to retire. My mom is well over the age of retirement. She's still working. She's 70, over 70 years old, and she's working hard. For her age, she's still strong. She's still going. She gets her Social Security benefits. My parents' house is paid off. By God's grace, took them 30 years. But you'd be surprised that a lot of elderly work in retail, work in I mean, I don't know what world you're living in, if it's just all young kids, Gen Zers working. There is a lot of elderly still working, whether privately or privately in the sense of doing, not privately, but like contracting or not necessarily a W-2 job. But again, it's all dependent on able-bodied people. Yeah, John, you're right. John Patrick, you say they do not all work. The majority of these people sit at home, play video games, hustle with side jobs and under the table payouts. Of course, you can fake, you can absolutely, no, not fake, you can absolutely make money and not report it. And you just live off the government. It's obviously not the right thing to do, but people are taking advantage. People are doing it because they want to. You have, the more kids you have, the more benefits you get. The benefits you can get with WIC. And we've seen the many that are able to acquire these benefits by able to do that from the last 4 years of coming into the country under the Biden administration. They allowed provisions for it. And so the actual American who does need assistance to get up on their feet, to start their own business, to get in work, because ultimately what capitalism is, what America was built on people that like billionaires that we have today, who built businesses You can't do that in a capitalist society. You can't do that in a communist society. This is why America works so well. This is why America is so great, but some people hate the fact that billionaires have money. I'm no billionaire. I'm not even a millionaire. Amen, John Patrick. You say if you knew who Jesus was, you could put your faith and trust in him that he will provide for you when you are having a hard time, and he said he'd make a way when there was no way. This is absolutely true, and that has most certainly happened to me on many occasions where God has always come through. Dead Man Lives, you say billionaires are not even close to the problem. It's not even about simping for billionaires. This is not even about billionaires. I don't even know why you're making it about billionaires. This is about Americans who are using, if they're using SNAP benefits, should be working. Should be using this as supplemental. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And by the way, YouTube punk, Jesus did serve the poor. And the people that he did condemn, he condemned, I wouldn't even say condemn. He was very critical of the religious leaders who, yes, would be essentially political leaders as well, because of their leading and misrepresentation of God. It's like Moses in the wilderness when God asks Moses to speak to the rock. The first time Moses spoke to the rock, actually, no, I'm sorry. God asks Moses to strike the rock. The first time Moses strikes the rock, water pours out. The second time the Israelites are asking for water, God tells Moses, speak to the rock. What does Moses do? Moses struck the rock. An terrible misrepresentation as to what God was trying to communicate to the people. And God was saying to Moses, look, you misrepresented me to the people. These are the people that Jesus was condemning because they said, we have Abraham as our father. They heavily relied upon Moses's the law that came from Moses, but Jesus was correcting their terrible understanding of what God intended when it comes to the laws of Moses, what he was being issued by God to put before the people of Israel. I'm going to conclude this poll here that says, should people on food assistance be required to work? Yes, is the majority of the answer here. 67%, 33% say no. It's interesting. First of all, it's an interesting take that people are saying no. I really want to know why. If we're excluding, in this question, we're excluding those who are not eligible to work. Eligible in the sense that they have a lot of health problems. They're either too young to have a job, obviously. They're not able-bodied. Even if you have a disability, look, you can go through the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. You can look through all of the things that most jobs, actually every job trains you on, where you have to have a reasonable accommodation if you have a disability. Reasonable accommodation. Most retail stores, I've worked in many retail stores, you had a smaller desk portion where a register would be if you were somebody that was hired as somebody with a disability in a wheelchair. There was a lower cashier area if the registers were indeed, standing height. Let me tell you, all of the applications that I ever got, because I was a hiring manager at some point, all of the applications I ever got, it was nobody with any disabilities, actually physical disabilities. But we still have to give everybody a shot, a chance at applying, a chance at an interview. When we screen these people on the phone, we don't say, "Oh, do you have any type of disability that we need to know of?" No, we just say, "Hey, you got the qualifications for the job that we're looking to fill? Great, come on in." Or we actually aren't looking for anybody with any qualifications. If you have no qualifications, you're straight out of high school, whatever the case is, we'll take you in. You're looking for a job. Cool. We'll hire you up if you want to learn how to do the job. A comment here says, weird poll since you all getting things correct. Food is opposite of something that anyone should need assistance with in regards to at least the average person and above. Sorry, I don't really understand your comment there. Race lever, I'm sorry. Since you all get things correct. Food is opposite of something that anyone should need assistance with in regards to at least the average person and above. If you can rephrase that question, I appreciate it. Well, YouTube Punk, you got quite a couple comments there, citing some sources or citing AI. A research paper from University of California, Berkeley found that the top 400 richest Americans saw their effective tax rate drop from 30% to about 23% in 2018 to 2020, which is lower than the average American taxpayer rate. You say that the conservative media has you ignoring how the rich are, you say, graping the country and us, and has you focused on smearing the poor people. At what point am I smearing poor people? Can anybody tell me in the chat that I'm smearing poor people? Be honest. You say a report by the White House Council of Economic Advisors estimated that the 400 wealthiest U.S. families paid an average federal individual tax rate of 8.2%, including unrealized gains between 2010 and 2018. In contrast, for many working Americans, effective federal income tax rates are significantly higher. For instance, in 2019, the average rate was about 13.3% of across all income levels. Type D. He said he's confused because I typed the O. I'm not really sure, Race Lever. I'm not really sure what you're saying. What? What is going on here? And then now you're going on about rich people paying for the laws, which keep our taxes higher than ours. Keep our taxes higher than, I think you mean, than theirs. CF, thank you for being here. Good night. Glad you can be here, and I hope you come to the next one. Look, I'm going to read your comment in a moment, John. I appreciate that comment. But the wealthy Americans, and many of them, I mean, honestly, as a delivery driver, I've gone to houses that are in some of the nicest neighborhoods in the area that I serve. And when you need a signature, and when you see somebody come to the door, oftentimes, in many cases, I can tell you it's more often than not, you see somebody who doesn't even speak English at the door. Like, how does that happen? Not a lick of English. And if anything, maybe barely broken English. Barely. But like, you got to use like these simplest English words to be able to communicate to them. Like, how else can you communicate to them when you need a signature? Or they need a translator. So whether they're foreigners, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Some of them had showed me their passports from another country if I need a signature or an identification. They've showed me their foreign passports or their foreign ID, which of course the scanners that we have accept them as a form of identification for a signature of a package. Their names match up. It all matches up. So how do they live in these massive mansions? They're just, I don't know. Some of the most gated communities, very well protected. Makes you wonder. John Patrick, you say I think it's funny how these people have the mindset that they are always going to be poor and can never get ahead. And it's always the fault of the rich. Maybe you should start a business and become rich. Amen to that. Amen to that. I've seen many Muslims. I've seen many Asians, which the Asian community is very rich out here in America. Very rich. And they've made it well for themselves. However they have done it, who knows? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. But somehow they live in these huge, massive mansions, and I've yet to come across in these, especially in these high, multi-million-dollar estates. You say, how many Muslim Asians have you seen? I wouldn't be able to tell you. Too much to count. Too much to count. Squatters. Yeah, I don't know. But you say, how do you know that they're the owner? They were the owner. Well, because everybody literally on this, but you say wrong answer. I wasn't answering. I was reading a comment, first of all. Spider Venom said squatters. I don't know. Or that was not the answer they were looking for. Look, those who live in these neighborhoods, these crazy neighborhoods, one, it's either on their address or it's on their ID. You know they live there. Okay. Or you're kind of also guessing here if you see many that come to the door because of a signature required or whatever the case. Then, in this neighborhood of 50 multi-million-dollar homes, I wouldn't even say 50. It's more like 20, 30s, multi-million-dollar homes. You go into the gated community, literally everybody there, either Asians, Chinese, I don't know, Korean, Vietnamese. I would say it leans more towards Asian. Their sort of accent, their passport from some part of Asia, either China or I wouldn't say, maybe I don't know. How would I classify? A lot of them Chinese, but you say race lever, you say, first off, if every neighborhood is a crazy neighborhood, when I say crazy neighborhood, let me clarify. If I say crazy neighborhood, what I mean is crazy neighborhood as in these crazy rich neighborhoods. Crazy, they're insane. You see that they have these beautiful entrances, these beautiful homes, all customized. Obviously, there's each home is different. It's not cookie cutter. It's not those neighborhoods where you can, you find it's like a gated community. You know what I'm talking about? Like those gated community neighborhoods where everything is still cookie cutter, yet every house is somewhat big. 2 stories, 1 story. No, these are massive estates. Huge lands, huge, massive front yard. Like you got a whole walkway of driveway and grass, and you have Mercedes-Benz, you have, BMWs, Lamborghinis, You might even have simple cars like a Toyota, simple cars like a Corolla, yet they have these massive mansions. But it looks like what you're assuming is that everyone who answers the door is the help, right? So you don't think these people can own expensive property just because of their race? I'm just saying, when you go into these neighborhoods and then every door that you need a signature on, because they could be, there could be many different houses in that area that need or require a signature. You're forced to knock on the door. You're forced to get a signature. You're forced to talk to them. Either Muslim, some type of either Muslim or Middle Eastern. Indian, Asian, all these communities. Again, when you're requiring a direct signature, or you're requiring an identification, what you have to do is you have to scan the ID. You have to look at the ID for any case that you might need that identification signature. You scan the ID, you sign it. And no judgments here on somebody rolling up in a mansion in Corolla. More power to that person who can, I mean, he's probably still, even then, you've seen these Corollas and then you see when they're walking out, because sometimes you'll be walking up to a home and then you'll see that, they're opening up their garage and you got the AMG in the you got the Corolla out on the driveway and then you got an AMG up in the garage, and then you got, I don't know, Lamborghini or their weekend car, their getaway car, but they got their daily. I mean, it's smart. You obviously have an expensive car. You don't want to damage that, use that as a daily. It's not even, many rich people say it's not even, they do that probably because they don't want to get tired of the expensive car. They want it to still feel luxurious when they go out on the weekends or whatever. Somebody said, for me, it's the opposite. My delivery driver never speaks English. That also can be the case, depending on who's hiring them. I've seen many. DoorDash is terrible for this. I think DoorDash needs some type of, investigation into their employees, because a lot of what you're seeing is somebody, and I'm sure many of you have gone through this also. When you're ordering food on DoorDash, which we've honestly, it was just like a little season where we were doing this. Back at our last place that we were living at, you would see on the DoorDasher, their profile is a woman, different name, and then you literally have like either a Mexican or an Asian or somebody that doesn't speak English dropping off food for you. Not even the identity that you're seeing on the phone. It doesn't even match up. Maybe you've experienced this or not. I have most certainly experienced this, where you have people that are delivering the food and they're using Translate because they're using the DoorDash Translate because you can obviously tell the way that the English is being written. It doesn't even make sense when you're telling them, directing them, guiding them where to go, what door to enter into, and this and that. And you try calling them, they hang up on you because they can't speak English. And then when you finally, you have to okay, all right, well, let me go and help them out. Let me walk out so they can find me. You try talking to them. They don't even speak a word of English. So I think that DoorDash needs to crack down on who they're hiring, because we've gotten food that, one crazy story, I don't even know if I'm going to share it, probably poisoned our food. A crazy story. And then we have many words, just like food looks like it was eaten. Food, terribly cold. That's not even, I'm not even talking about the fact that, it's because there's somebody else behind I'm just saying, it's just like, there's no care, no regard for anything. No regard for people and customer service. You have these companies that will hire anybody because they want the money. Yeah, you're right. You say you trust people. Well, you don't even know. That's the thing. You're expecting Sarah to come to the door to drop off your food, and then you have, I don't know, just insert whatever name from any ethnicity in that scenario, which has happened a dumb number of times to me and my wife. Literally, Uber drivers, when you drop off your car to a Volkswagen, they don't do loaners anymore. And if they had an Uber driver come pick you up, every now and again you would get somebody who didn't speak English. Good for you, John Patrick. Good for you. You say you never went on vacation, never bought expensive things. I drove an old car. I had a flip phone. I think we need to go back to flip phones, honestly. We need to just reverse things a bit. That's good. You say, but over time you have become quite wealthy, little by little, day by day, working hard, not relying on the government for any assistance. See, that is, John Patrick is a test case. Is not a test case. Is a case where we have somebody who did what he needed to do in order to get to where he wanted to be, to where he wanted to be. He's become quite wealthy, as he says, little by little, day by day, working hard. This is what America's good for. You can work hard and become rich. And according to Charlie Kirk, he says you can be rich. And I think you actually can, by his points that he made on the Coffee Hour podcast, is if you want to be rich, you can be rich. You just have to be willing to work and sacrifice hours, sacrifice your time to do it. And that involves oftentimes it's very simple. Finding a solution to somebody's need. You find the need and you figure out a solution for it. People will be willing to pay you for that. That's what business is. People have a need, you provide that need for them. Honestly, it's literally how anybody can obtain wealth, unless you win it by the lottery. But even then, studies have shown that those who are lottery winners, they don't really keep that money. They don't invest in it properly. They're often in a worse position than they were. They end up using it all. But people who actually acquire their rich, or their wealth, not their rich, but their wealth, they begin to manage their money more effectively. And I'm not here to give you any financial advice. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just saying simply, this is really what businesses are. They're there to provide a need to those who need it. And don't remind me as somebody who is the best at finances either. I want to get better at finances 100%. I think many of us do. Many of us who have worked our way to do anything, whether it was in a job, whether it was, I don't know, something like a podcast, which so much research goes into doing these things. A lot more that I wanted to cover, a lot more that I wanted to go through. We're going to have to do that on another podcast. So guys, if you enjoyed what you are hearing, what you've seen, please consider subscribing. Email me your final thoughts, equally yoked show. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you.